War Marshal Krixtor convinced the Nexarian High Command that humanity needed to be tested. The massive alien commander believed that while humans might be individually dangerous, they lacked the numbers and advanced technology to challenge a true galactic empire. He decided to demonstrate Nexarian superiority through a show of force that would convince the humans to accept proper guidance. The Nexarian fleet moved into position around the human mining colony on Kepler 442b. War Marshal Krixtor brought 12 heavy cruisers and support vessels to blockade the planet. He expected the humans to recognize their hopeless position and submit to Nexarian authority without actual fighting. Colonel Matt Rivera commanded the Planetary Defense Force from the surface installation. The experienced human officer watched the alien ships take blocking positions around his world and immediately understood their intentions. He activated the colony's defense grid and transmitted a message to the Nexarian fleet. Nexarian vessels, this is Colonel Rivera of the Kepler Defense Force. You have established a military blockade around a peaceful human colony. You have 30 minutes to withdraw your ships before we consider this an act of war against Earth. War Marshal Krixtor received the transmission with amusement. The primitive human colony had perhaps a dozen defensive platforms and a few patrol ships. His fleet could destroy their entire installation within minutes using superior energy weapons and shielding. Technology. Human Commander, you are in violation of Nexarian territorial claims. Power down your defensive systems and prepare for inspection. Resistance will be met with appropriate force. Colonel Rivera checked his chronometer and opened communications with Earth Defense Command. This is Kepler Base calling home. We have hostile aliens blockading our position, requesting immediate support under Article 7 of the Colonial Defense Act. The Nexarian commander assumed this was a desperate bluff from outgunned primitives. No civilized species would escalate a territorial dispute into actual warfare over a minor mining colony. He settled his fleet into blockade formation and waited for the humans to accept reality. 28 minutes after Colonel Rivera's ultimatum, long-range sensors detected multiple ships approaching at high speed. War Marshal Krixtor expected to see a small human fleet arriving to negotiate. Instead, his tactical display showed something that made no sense. Admiral Sandra Blake commanded the UES Retribution and 7 additional warships that had been patrolling the sector. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system and immediately took aggressive formations. Nexarian vessels. This is Admiral Blake of the Earth Defense Force. You are engaged in hostile actions against human citizens. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences of your aggression. War Marshal Krixtor studied the approaching human ships with professional interest. Their designs were crude compared to Nexarian technology, but something about their approach, patterns worried him. The humans were moving like they expected to fight rather than negotiate. Admiral Blake, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Your primitive weapons cannot penetrate Nexarian defenses. I recommend you withdraw before forcing us to demonstrate our superiority. Admiral Blake's response chilled every alien who heard it. War Marshal, you have attacked human citizens. Human policy is simple. Any aggression against our people requires proportional response. You have 5 minutes to begin withdrawing, or we will remove you by force. The Nexarian commander activated his fleet's energy shields and powered up their advanced weapon systems. His ships carried technology that had conquered dozens of star systems before the peaceful Federation was established. No primitive species could challenge vessels that had been upgraded with 3 centuries of advanced engineering. When Admiral Blake's deadline expired, the humans opened fire without further warning. War Marshal Krixtor expected to see primitive, energy weapons that his shields would easily deflect. Instead, his ships came under attack from weapons that Federation science said shouldn't exist. Kinetic slugs traveling at incredible speeds smashed through Nexarian energy shields like they were made of paper. The aliens had designed their defenses to stop energy weapons and particle beams. They had never considered that someone might simply throw very heavy objects at very high speeds. Captain Nash Reynolds commanded the Nexarian heavy cruiser Universal Might and watched in horror as human weapons tore through his ship's protective systems. The kinetic projectiles punched completely through his vessel's armor and exploded inside with devastating effect. Damage control teams to sections 4 through 7, Reynolds called over his ship's communication system. Emergency power to shields. How are they penetrating our defenses? His science officer, Tekmar, analyzed the human attack patterns with growing alarm. Captain, their weapons aren't energy-based. They're launching solid projectiles at tremendous velocity. Our shields were designed to deflect energy attacks. These kinetic weapons pass right through. The battle revealed the fundamental difference between human and alien approaches to warfare. Federation species had developed elegant energy weapons that disabled enemy systems while minimizing destruction. Humans had perfected the art of making things explode as violently as possible. Nuclear warheads detonated with yields that exceeded anything in Nexarian records. The humans didn't try to disable enemy ships. They tried to vaporize them completely. Worse, they coordinated their attacks with terrifying precision, as if they had spent their entire existence learning the most efficient ways to kill. Admiral Blake's fleet moved through the Nexarian formation like they were conducting a training exercise. The human ships targeted engines, weapons, and life support systems with surgical accuracy. They fought like a species that understood exactly how to take apart enemy vessels in the shortest possible time. War Marshal Krixtor realized his ships were being systematically destroyed by opponents who thought about warfare in completely different terms. The humans didn't fight like civilized species trying to minimize casualties. They fought like creatures whose survival depended on eliminating threats as quickly as possible. All ships, emergency withdrawal, Krixtor transmitted to his surviving vessels. Full retreat to safe distance. Do not attempt to engage the human fleet. Admiral Blake allowed the damaged Nexarian ships to withdraw while her forces maintained protective positions around the human colony. When the aliens were at safe distance, she opened a final communication channel. War Marshal Krixtor. This engagement used older human defensive systems and standard protocols. We recommend diplomatic solutions for any future disagreements. Earth has no interest in galactic conquest, but we will defend our citizens against any threat. The surviving Nexarian ships limped back to their home territory carrying news that shocked the entire empire. The primitive humans had destroyed half of their most advanced fleet using weapons that operated on completely different principles than civilized warfare. Word of the battle spread throughout Federation space within days. Some species called for immediate isolation from the dangerous humans. Others worried that Nexarian aggression might trigger something even worse. A few wondered what would happen when a species that had never stopped fighting gained access to galactic technology. Captain Vorthak filed a detailed analysis with Nexarian intelligence after studying the battle records. His report was simple, but terrifying. The humans don't fight wars the way we do. They don't try to control territory or capture resources. They fight to completely destroy anyone who threatens them. This is not warfare as we understand it. This is extermination protocol. Dr. Lithara updated her cultural assessment after reviewing the battle data. The humans approach conflict from a fundamentally different perspective than peaceful species. They don't see war as a failure of diplomacy. They see it as an inevitable part of existence that requires total commitment to victory. War Marshal. Crixtor survived the encounter, but his military career was destroyed. The Nexarian High Command removed him from active duty and began secret preparations for a larger conflict. They couldn't accept that primitive aliens had defeated their most advanced fleet. Admiral Blake returned to Earth and filed her report with Defense Command. The Nexarians tested our resolve and found it adequate. Recommend continued diplomatic engagement but maintain defensive readiness. These aliens may try again with larger forces. The galaxy had learned that humans were not just another species to be integrated into peaceful civilization. They were the species that others would need to be very careful about provoking. The ancient legends had been right about one thing. The Pale Warriors were extremely dangerous when threatened. Admiral Telvanni called the emergency session of the Galactic Council within hours of receiving Captain Nixara's report. Representatives from all 7 Federation species gathered in the Great Hall on the capital world of Zentara Prime. The news that the legendary Pale Warriors had returned sent shockwaves through the peaceful galaxy. The Krillian representative Dr. Savante argued for immediate diplomatic integration. These humans have achieved spaceflight and made peaceful contact. We should welcome them into the Federation using standard procedures. Their appearance matches ancient legends, but legends often exaggerate the truth. War Marshal Crixtor of the Nexarian Empire disagreed strongly. The massive warrior stood and addressed the council with obvious concern. The ancient records were not legends. They were warnings. These creatures defeated our ancestors despite having primitive technology. Now they have improved their capabilities. We must evaluate the threat they represent. While the council debated, more human ships began appearing throughout Federation space. The UES Storm Chaser under Captain Ben Carter arrived to establish mining operations in the Vega system. The research vessel UES Pathfinder, commanded by Dr. Kate Morgan, began cataloging alien plant and animal species in the Centauri region. Each human ship displayed the same disturbing characteristics that had worried Captain Nixara. They were all heavily armed for their supposed peaceful missions. Their crews remained calm and alert in potentially dangerous situations. Most troubling, they seemed to expect that any encounter might turn hostile. Federation Command established formal diplomatic contact with Earth and sent Ambassador Velthar to begin cultural exchange programs. The elderly Zentarian diplomat was known for his skill at integrating new species into Federation society. He arrived at Earth expecting to find a typical developing civilization ready to learn from more advanced neighbors. Ambassador Helen Ross welcomed Velthar to Earth's orbital, stationed with proper diplomatic courtesy. The human representative was professional and friendly, but something about her responses puzzled the alien diplomat. She discussed human culture and history as if constant warfare was a normal part of civilization. Your species seems to have had some conflicts during your development, Velthar said politely. Most civilizations go through brief periods of violence before achieving peaceful maturity. How long ago did your people move beyond such primitive behaviors? Ambassador Ross paused for a moment before answering. We haven't moved beyond them. Humans are currently engaged in approximately 40 different military conflicts on our homeworld. We've been fighting continuously throughout our entire recorded history. The alien diplomat was certain he had misunderstood something. Surely you mean your ancient history. No civilized species continues warfare after achieving spaceflight capability. Ambassador Ross showed him a display of current Earth conflicts. Wars, civil disputes, Territorial battles and armed conflicts were happening all across the human homeworld at that very moment. Humanity had somehow developed space travel while maintaining their warrior culture. Dr. Lithara joined the cultural exchange mission to study human archaeological records. She wanted to compare Earth's history with the ancient ruins that had, first, revealed the existence of these pale warriors. What she discovered contradicted everything the Federation knew about civilized development. Human military history was vast and detailed. They had invented thousands of different weapons and developed complex strategies for defeating any possible enemy. Their wars had grown more sophisticated as their technology advanced, but they had never stopped fighting. Even their peaceful periods were spent preparing for the next inevitable conflict. "This is impossible," Dr. Lithara told Ambassador Ross during a private meeting. "Civilized species evolve beyond warfare. How did your people achieve space travel while maintaining such violent tendencies?" Ambassador Ross explained that humans didn't see warfare as primitive behavior to be outgrown. They viewed it as a permanent aspect of existence that required constant preparation. "We don't fight because we're uncivilized. We fight because fighting is sometimes necessary. The question isn't whether conflict will happen. The question is whether we'll be ready when it does." The Federation's military experts requested demonstrations of human defensive capabilities. Captain Zalreth brought his advanced training ship to Earth's solar system to show the humans proper tactical formations and energy weapon applications. He expected to educate these primitive warriors about modern space combat. Captain Greg Foster and Major Susan Clark observed the Federation demonstration with professional interest. The human officers watched quietly as the alien ship performed complex maneuvers and fired sophisticated energy weapons at practice targets. When the demonstration ended, Captain Foster requested permission to offer suggestions. "Your formation concentrates too much firepower in the center," Foster explained politely. "An enemy could disable your entire squadron by targeting your command vessel. Also, your energy weapons are very impressive, but they telegraph their targeting patterns. A smart opponent would start evasive maneuvers before you could lock on." Major Clark added her own observations. "Your defensive formations assume the enemy will attack from predictable directions. Human doctrine teaches us to expect attacks from any angle, including above, below, and from inside our own formations." Captain Zalreth was initially offended by suggestions from primitive aliens, but his military training made him consider their ideas objectively. The humans were right. Federation combat doctrine had evolved for fighting other civilized species who followed predictable patterns. These creatures thought like people who expected enemies to use any tactic that might work. The most disturbing revelation came when the Nexarian Empire's flagship Stellar Dominance encountered a human supply vessel in the neutral zone. War Marshal Crixtor personally commanded the mission to observe human logistics operations. He expected to find lightly defended cargo ships that would reveal the weaknesses of human space infrastructure. The UES freight runner, commanded by Captain Alex Turner, was delivering mining equipment to a human colony world. The ship looked like a simple cargo hauler until Nexarian sensors began detailed scanning. What they discovered challenged everything they thought they knew about civilized space travel. The human supply ship carried enough weapons to outfit a Federation battlecruiser, defensive missiles, kinetic interceptors, and armored hull sections that could withstand direct energy weapon strikes. Most species barely armed their military vessels. Humans had turned a cargo ship into a mobile fortress. Captain Turner responded to Nexarian contact requests with calm professionalism. "This is UES Freight Runner on routine supply mission. We're happy to share navigation data if you need safe passage through this system. Is there anything we can help you with? War Marshal Krixtor couldn't understand why a supply ship needed enough firepower to destroy planets. Why does your cargo vessel carry such extensive weapon systems? Captain Turner seemed genuinely confused by the question. Standard defensive loadout for operations outside core systems. Space is dangerous, and cargo ships are valuable targets. We'd be irresponsible not to prepare for possible threats. The Nexarian commander realized that humans didn't just arm their warships for battle. They armed everything for battle. Their cargo ships, research vessels, diplomatic transports, and mining platforms all carried enough weapons to challenge serious military threats. Dr. Lithara made her final report to the Federation Council 3 months after human contact began. Her conclusions were disturbing but undeniable. The humans are exactly what the ancient records described. They are a species that never evolved beyond warfare. They have achieved space flight, but they remain fundamentally military in their thinking. Admiral Telvanni studied the cultural analysis with growing concern. Are they aggressive toward other species? Do they represent a threat to Federation peace? Dr. Lithara shook her head. They don't seem interested in conquering other civilizations, but they prepare for conflict as if it's inevitable. They arm their ships, train their crews, and think tactically about every situation. They're not aggressive, but they're always ready for war. The Federation faced an unprecedented situation. They had welcomed a species into the galaxy that approached every interaction from a military perspective. The humans weren't hostile, but they were dangerous in ways that peaceful civilizations couldn't fully understand. War Marshal Krixtor filed his recommendation with Nexarian High Command. These humans represent a fundamental challenge to galactic stability. They think like warriors in a galaxy of peaceful species. We must either control them or eliminate them before they disrupt the order we have maintained for 3 centuries. Lieutenant Colonel Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Iron Wolf, watching the stars ahead. The ship had been traveling for 6 months since leaving Earth's solar system. This was humanity's first real attempt at deep space exploration, using their new faster-than-light drive. The crew of 200 people were excited to finally meet other intelligent life in the galaxy. Captain Lisa Harper checked the navigation systems while Chief Engineer Ryan Bell monitored the engines. Communications Officer Amy Scott listened for any signals from alien civilizations. They all knew this mission would change everything for humanity. After centuries of wondering if they were alone in the universe, they were about to find out. The Iron Wolf detected the asteroid field 3 days after entering the Kepler system. The rocks contained rare minerals that Earth needed for their growing space program. Captain Harper ordered the ship to begin scanning the asteroids to see which ones would be worth mining. The crew worked efficiently as they had trained for years to reach this moment. Amy Scott noticed the strange signal first. Her instruments picked up regular transmission patterns coming from the other side of the asteroid field. The signals were clearly artificial and seemed to be some kind of communication system. She called Captain Harper immediately. "Captain, we're receiving organized transmissions from bearing 27 Mark IV. The patterns suggest an intelligent source. We may have found our first aliens." Captain Harper felt her heart rate increase but kept her voice calm. "Signal all stations to prepare for first contact procedures. Tell Colonel Morrison we may have company soon. Amy, try to respond with basic mathematical sequences. Let's see if they want to talk." The Federation ship Harmony's voice had been patrolling this sector for routine maintenance when they detected the unknown vessel. Captain Nixara was curious about the strange ship design. It looked crude compared to Federation technology, but something about it seemed wrong. The hull was too thick, and the energy readings showed systems that didn't match any known civilization. Captain Nixara activated the standard first contact protocols that the Federation had used successfully for 300 years. His ship began broadcasting mathematical sequences and peaceful intentions toward the unknown vessel. He expected the primitive aliens to respond with simple mathematics and then submit to standard inspection procedures. Amy Scott received the alien transmissions and quickly recognized the mathematical patterns. She responded with more complex equations to show that humans understood advanced mathematics. But when the alien ship began approaching and activated what looked like scanning beams, Captain Harper made a decision that confused everyone involved. Unknown vessel, this is Captain Harper of the United Earth ship Iron Wolf. We appreciate your peaceful intentions, but we do not submit to inspections by unknown parties. Please maintain your current distance while we establish proper diplomatic contact. Captain Nixara was puzzled by the response. Most primitive species were eager to cooperate with the advanced Federation. These creatures seemed to understand that his ship was superior, but refused to follow standard procedures. He decided to continue approaching while keeping his scanning systems active. Chief Engineer Ryan Bell monitored the alien ship's approach and noticed their scanning beams were getting stronger. Captain, those energy patterns could be targeting systems. Should I recommend they back off? Captain Harper nodded. Open a channel. Unknown vessel, your scanning systems might be interpreted as weapons targeting. We recommend you reduce power and maintain safe distance for both our vessels. The Federation crew found this response completely unreasonable. Captain Nixara knew his scanning beams were obviously scientific instruments. What kind of primitive species would mistake research equipment for weapons? He decided these aliens were simply too backward to understand advanced technology. But then his science officer Meltar made a discovery that changed everything. The detailed scans of the human ship revealed weapon systems that shouldn't exist. The crude-looking vessel carried projectile launchers with incredible power ratings. The energy readings suggested explosive devices with yields that exceeded anything in Federation databases. Captain, Meltar said with obvious worry in his voice, these creatures have armed their exploration ship with enough weapons to destroy a small moon. The projectile systems alone could punch through our shields like they were made of paper. Captain Nixara studied the weapons readings with growing alarm. The human ship carried kinetic railguns, fusion warheads, and something their computers couldn't identify, but registered as extremely dangerous. No civilized species put that much firepower on a simple exploration vessel. More disturbing than the weapons was the crew's behavior. Federation sensors could monitor alien biological responses during first contact situations. Most species showed stress patterns when meeting advanced civilizations for the first time. The humans showed no stress at all. Their heart rates and brain activity suggested they were completely calm and alert. Jake Morrison joined Captain Harper on the bridge as the situation developed. The experienced military officer watched the alien ship's movements and recognized standard patrol patterns. These aliens were definitely military and seemed to be following some kind of inspection protocol. They're treating us like we're supposed to surrender for processing, Morrison told Harper. Their approach vector and energy signature suggest they expect us to power down and submit to their authority. Captain Harper considered their options. The humans had come here peacefully, but they weren't prepared to surrender their ship to unknown aliens. Colonel, what's your assessment of their capabilities? Morrison studied the sensor readings. Their technology is definitely more advanced than ours in some areas, better energy shields, more efficient engines. But their weapons are all energy-based. Systems designed for disabling rather than destroying. They're not equipped for serious combat. When Captain Nixara realized the humans weren't going to comply with standard procedures, he made the mistake of activating his ship's defensive shields. In Federation protocol, this was a standard safety measure during first contact with unpredictable species. He didn't realize what message this would send to a species that had never stopped fighting wars. Captain Harper watched the alien ship's shields come online and immediately ordered combat alert status. All stations, prepare for possible hostile action. Weapons to ready position, but do not target unless fired upon. Amy, transmit our defensive posture to the alien vessel. The transformation shocked Captain Nixara and his crew. The primitive human ship smoothly shifted into what was obviously a combat formation. Their weapon systems powered up with practiced efficiency. Most alarming, the crew's biological readings showed they had transitioned into combat readiness without any panic or confusion. Amy Scott broadcast on all frequencies. Unknown vessel, we have detected your defensive activation. We are responding, with appropriate caution but maintain peaceful intentions. Please explain your intentions and current status. The Federation crew realized they were facing something unprecedented. These weren't primitive aliens stumbling through their first contact with advanced civilization. These were experienced warriors who treated potential combat as a routine possibility rather than a catastrophic failure of diplomacy. Captain Nixara quickly deactivated his shields and transmitted peaceful intentions, but the damage was done. The humans had revealed their true nature. They were a species that had armed their exploration ships for war and trained their crews to fight at a moment's notice. The first contact ended peacefully with both sides agreeing to establish formal diplomatic channels. But Captain Nixara immediately transmitted an emergency report to Federation Command. The message was simple but terrifying. We have encountered a species that matches the ancient legends. They call themselves humans, and they have achieved space flight. Request immediate consultation with Xenoarchaeology Department. Captain Harper filed her own report with Earth Command. First contact successful with peaceful outcome. Alien species appears technologically advanced but follows rigid protocols. Recommend caution in future encounters. They seem surprised by our defensive capabilities. The galaxy was about to learn that the pale warriors from the ancient ruins were not legends or myths. They were humans. They had returned to this region of space, and they brought with them the same approach to potential conflict that had made them legendary thousands of years ago. The stars looked peaceful from the bridge of the Star Weaver as Commander HFY watched the endless void of space. His ship moved slowly through the outer rim territories of the Galactic Federation, checking on the newer colonies and making sure everything stayed quiet. The Krillian officer had been doing this job for 20 years now, and nothing ever happened anymore. The galaxy had been at peace for 300 years, and most species had forgotten what war even looked like. HFY touched his communication device and spoke to his crew. The Star Weaver was heading to the Viridian colony to help them set up their new trading posts. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. The Federation needed to make sure all the new members followed the same peaceful ways that had kept the galaxy safe for so long. When they arrived at Viridian Prime, the colonists were excited to show them something strange. The planet had ruins from some ancient civilization that nobody could identify. The structures were old and broken, but the walls still had pictures carved into the stone. The Viridian settlers had found them while building their first city. Dr. Lithara came aboard. The Star Weaver 3 days later. She was the Federation's best expert on old civilizations and alien writing. The slim scientist spent hours studying the stone carvings while Zexhai waited for her report. He hoped it would be something simple like old trading records or religious stories. The doctor called him to the ruins on the 4th day. She looked worried as she pointed at the wall carvings. The pictures showed strange creatures that walked on 2 legs like some Federation species, but looked different from anything in their records. These beings had pale skin and stood upright without tails or natural armor. What made the pictures interesting was what they were doing. "Look at this," Dr. Lithara said as she traced her finger along the carved stone. "These creatures are fighting, but their weapons are so primitive. See these stick-like objects they carry? They must be some kind of projectile launcher. And here they have vehicles that seem to fly, but the design is all wrong." Zexhai studied the carvings more carefully. The strange beings were shown in battle, against creatures that looked like modern Federation species. The aliens in the pictures had advanced energy weapons and sleek spacecraft. But somehow the primitive creatures were winning. In every scene, the 2-legged beings stood victorious over their more advanced enemies. "This has to be mythology," Zexhai said. "No primitive species could defeat advanced civilizations. These are just stories told by ancient peoples to make themselves feel brave." Dr. Lithara shook her head slowly. "I thought so too, but look at this writing. I can translate some of it. It talks about the pale warriors from the 3rd rock and vessels that breathed fire and lightning. The descriptions are too detailed. For simple stories, someone was trying to record actual events. Over the next week, more ruins were found on 2 other planets in nearby systems. Each site had the same type of carvings, showing the same strange creatures. The consistency was troubling. If these were just stories, why did 3 different worlds have identical myths about the same fictional species? The scientific community split into 2 groups when news of the discoveries spread. Most experts agreed with Zexhai that the carvings showed mythological creatures from primitive imaginations. A few scientists, like Dr. Lithara, believed the ruins might describe real events from the distant past. Captain Vorthak of the Nexarian Empire heard about the discoveries and decided to investigate for himself. The Nexarians were the strongest military force in the Federation, and Vorthak prided himself on knowing about potential threats. His people had conquered 12 star systems before joining the peaceful Federation. If dangerous aliens existed, somewhere in the galaxy, he wanted to know about them. Vorthak brought his exploration ship to examine the ruins personally. The Nexarian captain was a large creature with thick armor plating and natural weapons. His species had evolved as hunters and warriors before they learned to build starships. When he saw the stone carvings, something about them bothered him. "These creatures fight wrong," Vorthak told Dr. Lithara during her presentation. "Look at their formations. They spread out instead of staying together. They attack from multiple directions instead of charging directly. This is not how primitive beings fight. This is advanced military thinking." The doctor paused her translation work to listen. Vorthak continued studying the battle scenes carved into the ancient walls. The strange 2-legged creatures used tactics that even modern Nexarian officers would respect. They combined different types of weapons and coordinated complex attacks. Most disturbing, they seemed to fight with a level of violence that exceeded anything in current Federation military doctrine. "Here," Vorthak pointed at one detailed carving. "They are not just defeating their enemies, they are destroying them completely. See how their primitive ships attack the enemy vessels? They do not disable or capture. They blow everything apart. This is not civilized warfare. This is total destruction. Dr. Lithara spent another month studying the ruins and translating more of the ancient writing. The texts described the Pale Warriors as creatures who knew only battle and turned all things into weapons. According to the carvings, these beings came from a small world orbiting a yellow star. They arrived in ships that looked crude but proved devastatingly effective in combat. The most disturbing discovery came when the doctor found references to the warriors' home system. The ancient texts described it as the third rock from the Yi-A, burning eye, which could only mean the third planet from its star. The coordinates carved into the stone matched a region of space that the Federation had never explored. Commander Zexhai filed his final report with Federation Headquarters 3 months after the first discovery. He recommended that the ruins be classified as archaeological curiosities with no military significance. The strange creatures in the carvings were probably extinct for thousands of years if they had ever existed at all. But Captain Vorthak filed a different report with Nexarian Command. He requested permission to lead an expedition to the unexplored regions of space where the ancient texts said the Pale Warriors had originated. Something about the ruins worried him. The tactics shown in the carvings were too advanced for primitives, but too violent for civilized beings. Dr. Lithara continued her research after the official investigation ended. She found more references to the Pale Warriors in ruins on 6 additional worlds. Every site told the same story. Primitive creatures with advanced military thinking had passed through this region of space long ago. They had fought anyone who challenged them and won every battle despite having inferior technology. The doctor made one final discovery that she decided not to report to Federation authorities. Hidden in the deepest ruins, she found carvings that showed the Pale Warriors' ships departing the region. The final pictures suggested they had not been destroyed or driven away. They had simply left to explore other parts of the galaxy. On the edge of Federation space, a deep space monitoring station detected unusual energy signatures coming from an unmapped star system. The readings matched no known Federation technology. Lieutenant Kexmar filed a routine report about the strange signals but marked them as low priority. Probably just natural cosmic phenomena or equipment malfunction. The energy signatures matched exactly the propulsion systems carved into the ancient ruins that Dr. Lithara had been studying. The Pale Warriors were not legends or myths or extinct civilizations. They were real, they were still out there, and they were coming back. War Marshal Krixtor refused to accept defeat by primitive aliens. The Nexarian military leadership secretly assembled the largest fleet in their empire's history. Over 200 warships gathered at the edge of Nexarian space, including their most advanced dreadnoughts and battlecruisers. Krixtor planned to strike directly at Earth and force humanity's complete surrender. The Nexarian Empire believed that while humans might win individual battles, they couldn't match the industrial might of a civilization that controlled dozens of star systems. Their plan was simple: destroy the human home fleet and dictate terms to a helpless Earth. Fleet Admiral Dex Thane commanded the massive armada as it jumped into Earth's solar system. The Nexarians expected to find a primitive homeworld defended by perhaps 50 ships. Instead, their sensors detected something that defied all expectations. Rear Admiral Tony Garcia commanded Earth's home defense network from the orbital fortress above Luna. His scanners had been tracking the approaching alien fleet for 3 days. When the Nexarians appeared at the edge of the solar system, Garcia activated humanity's true defensive capabilities. The Nexarian fleet found themselves facing not dozens of ships, but thousands. Earth's home system contained defensive platforms, orbital fortresses, minefields, and automated weapons systems that turned the entire solar system into a fortress. What the aliens thought was a single planet was actually a heavily fortified military stronghold. Admiral Garcia broadcast a message that was heard throughout the Nexarian fleet. "This is Earth Defense Command. You have entered restricted space with hostile intent. You are advised that this system is fully defended. Withdraw immediately or face total destruction." Fleet Admiral Dex Thane studied his tactical displays with growing alarm. The human defensive network included weapon platforms that his computers couldn't properly classify. Kinetic launchers with power ratings that exceeded Nexarian capital ship weapons. Missile systems with nuclear warheads larger than anything in their military databases. Human Commander, you are outmatched by superior Nexarian technology. Surrender now, and your species will be treated with appropriate mercy. Admiral Garcia's response demonstrated the fundamental difference between human and alien military thinking. "Admiral Dex Thane, you have brought a fleet to attack our home world. This constitutes an existential threat to humanity. We are authorized to use any means necessary to protect Earth." The battle began when overeager Nexarian captains opened fire on human orbital platforms. What they thought would be a quick demonstration of superiority became a nightmare that revealed the true horror of human warfare. The Nexarians discovered that humans didn't just build warships. They built weapons platforms, orbital fortresses, automated defense grids, and systems that could turn asteroids into guided missiles. The entire solar system had been converted into a fortress designed to destroy anyone who threatened Earth. Captain Julie Chen commanded the UES Devastator and led a counterattack that demonstrated advanced human strategic thinking. While the Nexarians focused on ship-to-ship combat, the humans targeted supply lines, communication networks, and command structures. They fought like a species that understood war as something beyond simple battles. The human fleet moved through the Nexarian formation using tactics that the aliens had never seen before. Instead of engaging in direct combat, they attacked infrastructure and support systems. Human ships appeared behind enemy lines, destroyed supply vessels, and vanished before the Nexarians could respond. Commander Steve Johnson led infiltration teams that captured Nexarian command vessels using boarding techniques that no civilized species had ever developed. The human soldiers moved through alien ships like they had been studying Nexarian technology for years rather than months. The Nexarians realized that humans didn't just fight differently, they thought differently about every aspect of warfare. Human commanders treated impossible odds as merely difficult challenges. Their soldiers adapted to unknown technology instantly. Their strategies assumed that enemies would use every possible advantage. Fleet Admiral Dex Thane watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by opponents who fought wars the way peaceful species played games. The humans demonstrated total commitment to victory regardless of cost. They used civilian vessels as weapons platforms, turned merchant ships into troop transports, and converted mining equipment into military hardware. The decisive moment came when the humans revealed their ultimate defensive capability. Earth's moon opened like a giant mechanical flower, revealing construction facilities that had been building warships in secret for decades. Hundreds of fresh human vessels emerged from hidden bases and joined the battle. "This is impossible," Fleet Admiral Dex Thane transmitted to his surviving ships. "No species maintained such extensive military preparations during peacetime." Admiral Garcia responded with calm professionalism that chilled every alien who heard it. "Admiral, humans have been at war for our entire recorded history. We don't have peacetime. We have brief periods between conflicts when we prepare for the next inevitable battle." War Marshal Krixtor commanded one of the few surviving Nexarian dreadnoughts as the fleet collapsed around him. He finally understood what the ancient ruins had been trying to warn them about. Humans weren't just another warrior species. They were the ultimate warrior species that had never stopped evolving their ability to fight. The Nexarian surrender came when Krixtor realized that continued fighting would result in the complete destruction of his fleet. The humans had demonstrated capabilities that exceeded everything the Nexarian Empire could deploy. Worse, they showed no signs of being at their limit. Earth Defense Command, this is War Marshal Krixtor requesting cessation of hostilities. The Nexarian fleet surrenders unconditionally. Admiral Garcia accepted the surrender, but maintained defensive positions throughout the solar system. War Marshal, your surviving vessels will be escorted to neutral space. Any future aggression against human citizens will be met with appropriate response. The aftermath of the battle sent shock waves through the entire galaxy. The Nexarian Empire, the strongest military force in Federation space, had been crushed by a species that most aliens still considered primitive. Worse, the humans had won using only their defensive forces without deploying their main battle fleets. Ambassador Helen Ross negotiated the peace treaties that ended the crisis. The Federation formally recognized humanity as an equal member with full rights and privileges. But the other species now understood that humans represented something completely new in galactic civilization. Dr. Lithara filed her final report on human society after studying the battle records. Humans are not aggressive toward other species, but they are incredibly dangerous when threatened. They approach warfare from a perspective that no peaceful civilization can match. They fight to win rather than to negotiate. The Federation Council established new protocols for dealing with humanity. Ambassador Velthar recommended that all species treat humans with the respect due to beings who could destroy entire fleets, if provoked. The ancient legends had been warnings about creatures who brought total war to a galaxy accustomed to civilized conflict. Captain Vorthak updated his military analysis after reviewing the complete battle data. The humans have changed everything. They've shown that our peaceful civilization exists only because no one has seriously tried to destroy it. Now we know what happens when real warriors enter our galaxy. Admiral Blake returned from patrol duty to find that humanity had become the galaxy's unofficial protectors. Other species began requesting human assistance with problems that required military solutions. Pirates, rebels, and aggressive neighbors suddenly became much more careful when they learned that humans might respond to calls for help. The final scene took place in Federation schools throughout the galaxy. Young aliens learned new history lessons about the ancient ruins and the pale warriors they had described. The hieroglyphs weren't legends or myths or primitive stories. They were warnings left by civilizations that had encountered humanity thousands of years ago. The galaxy had learned that humans weren't just another species to be integrated into peaceful civilization. They were the species that others would call when something dangerous needed to be stopped. They were also the species that others would avoid provoking unless they were prepared for total war. Earth's children grew up knowing they lived in a galaxy full of peaceful neighbors who respected their dangerous heritage. Human schools taught students about their responsibility to protect civilizations that had forgotten how to protect themselves. The warriors from the Third Rock had returned to the galaxy, bringing both the promise of protection and the threat of consequences for those who mistook their preference for peace as weakness.